Everybody, welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Durling. I'm joined once again by John the Music Nut. Hey, John.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm good. We're well into our Y&T deep dive series, and oddly enough, if I've got my figuring done correctly, this is episode 510, which is fitting because the album we're talking about today is actually Y&T 10 from 1990. And this is going to be a really, I've called this my favorite Y&T album. I argued on the contrarians for it and got some heck for it. This is when I got on board. And so I've listened to this album probably more than any one Y&T album.
Okay.
So it's not the easiest thing for me to be objective about this, but I'm going to try. So,
Right.
so this is my entry point, John. And I know you got into them much earlier. Like you got into them with, I think, In Rock We Trust.
Correct.
Yeah. So you already had 6 years up as a fan. And for me, I'd heard of them, but I was watching Much Music, Canada's equivalent of MTV, and their hard rock metal show, I guess the equivalent of Headbangers Ball, was called the Power Hour.
Okay.
And so this was just at the end of grade 10. So this would have been June 1990. And I saw the video to this song, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Now, I didn't have this CD single back then, and I was hooked. I'm like, okay, this is right up my alley. This is just the type of hard rock music I like. I've heard of this band. Here's a band that I can dive into and check out, and that's where it all began. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy finding the albums, but got a lot of great music listened in on the way. So I guess, John, what was your experience with 10? Like, as it hearing about, did you know it was coming out, or just walk me through your experience with the 10 album?
I got in real time. I was a fan and I was following everything they were doing. Now, I wasn't going to see them live because I wasn't really going to see much concerts at this point in my life. But I got it as it came out. I heard Don't Be Afraid of the Dark a little bit on Rock 107 out of Scranton, Pennsylvania. Saw the video probably twice, if that. But it seemed like I liked this album. With me, I was on an island with this band because my friends didn't like Y&T. They might have known of them, but they weren't really into them. They certainly weren't buying the albums like I was. But it just seemed to sink without a trace. Back then I was following Billboard. I think it may have hit like 110.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, like 110, because back then I was actually buying Billboard magazine at the Walden bookstore, and I'd buy it like maybe every month just to see what was going on in the charts. I was really big into the charts then. And this didn't get the push, but at the same time, you sense that musical tastes were changing at this point underground, because we were getting hit so hard with the power ballads and the hair metal at this point. But you saw that things were changing, especially in retrospect, especially.
Yeah.
But when I heard this album, I thought to myself, that single that you put up, how am I not hearing this more? Because you're hearing a lot of similar songs like that on top 40 radio and album-oriented rock radio at this point. So I was on an island. I always enjoyed the album.
Yeah.
I always thought it was an improvement over Down for the Count and Contagious. But I thought it deserved a lot more love than it got.
Yeah, I remember it very, very well. And it's funny you mentioned seeing the video a couple of times. I think this is back in, the VCR days. You try to record your videos. And I think the one time Much Music played the video is the one time I caught it. And the reason that I caught it was because at that time, it repeated. So the first time that the Power Hour show was on was at 5 p.m. But I knew it was going to repeat at 9 p.m. So I came in about halfway through and I'm like, okay, I got to be ready for this. So I had the VCR ready to go, and I watched that video over and over and over again. And like I've said before in earlier deep dives, the first thing I found was Mean Street, because I knew that, okay, it's probably fortuitous that I'm finding this because it's out of print. I found that. I found Down for the Count. I went on a road trip, family road trip, and I got Black Tiger and In Rock We Trust and Contagious. And then the very next thing I bought, I actually bought it at a hometown record store. I went and bought this cassette tape right here. So this is the Canadian version of the 10 album.
Oh, nice.
And very striking artwork, obviously, in that orange. It's interesting. It's an interesting color choice. They went with the orange. There's no lyrics inside the cassette.
No, there isn't.
Lyrics inside the CD, but there were no lyrics inside the cassette. And
more photos of the band, yeah.
Yeah, and the US cassette, quite similar, except what I find was interesting. So I've got a Canadian cassette and 2 US cassettes. And the Canadian one had the black lettering on orange, where the US ones had white lettering. And I've got 2 different US cassettes, and I'm really not sure what the difference is. So the first one looks like this. This was fairly typical, the way that the song titles were written out.
Correct.
Okay, so you've got the one that I've got right here, where it's more of a plain, like Arial or Helvetica font.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the difference is, because neither of those are Record Club cassettes. And I thought maybe one came out after Geffen switched their distribution from Warner Brothers to MCA, but no, that's not the case. These are both manufactured by Warner. So I really don't know why there's 2 different versions of the cassette. The CD, now we're going to get into this, but the CD is interesting. You already held up the retail CD.
Yes.
And so this is the cassette, and this is the CD. Now, so when you see this, I don't think it's not very clear what you're looking at here. If you're a brand new fan, have never heard of the band, and obviously we know that, that that's a very nice fold out. Mm-hmm. And this is what, and then there's the smaller pictures of the band, and here's the lyrics. Yes. But when you just see that, and I remember seeing this a lot, I think that the average fan would be like, well, what is that? And overlook it. And it's that thing that you dread, right? Because like I've said many times, I think a lot of people needed to do with Y&T is hear them and they'd get into it. But a couple of years after, and I might add, I remember seeing this CD marked down for like 2 years after. So I remember seeing it quite a bit, I wish now I'd bought a bunch, but I actually found a couple of years later a promotional copy that had this on the cover, which is kind of cool because, it was their 10th album. And the back of it is much the same, but the band photo is a little bit cut off.
Yep.
And there's the CD itself. It's got promotional on it. So I thought that was kind of neat too. But, and then of course, a few years back, I finally took the plunge and found a German version of it on vinyl. So the story is, back in the CD long box days, this was the long box. This was the picture on the long box. And that so once you bought it, then you get just a half sort of photo. So I think that there might have been a little bit of that confusion about, what it is, who it is, but that's all surface stuff. And you're right. By the end of the year, they had done their final concerts before going on hiatus. We didn't know for how long. We just thought they were done. Right. And it would be the first of many times that I would get into a band and then they broke up. Right. It's actually not the first time, because I had just gotten into Dokken the year before, and then so anyway, it's I think it's an incredible album. I think it is exactly the right album for that particular time. late spring, early summer 1990. This type of music was still very strong in the charts. If you were to look at the upper reaches of Billboard, Skid Row, Aerosmith, Motley Crue, Warrant, you even had bands like Faster Pussycat having minor hits, LA Guns. Granted, they were power ballads, and yes, that saturation was happening. And yeah, we weren't paying close enough attention. But if you looked in the back pages of Circus and Hit Parader, you'd start to see these articles on bands like Soundgarden, and bands like Alice in Chains. So it was bubbling under, right? But I mean, like, all these bands were still selling millions of albums, and then bands were having gold records here, and yet Y&T, once again, it was too little too late, or the record company gave up. There no second single like Contagious, and it was just it's too bad. It's too bad, because I think this is a stronger album than Contagious. I like Contagious, but I think this is a stronger album. I think it's a slightly more mature album. I think it's a better sounding album. Mike Stone produced it. They had a really for the first time, a really big name producer, Mike Stone. I mean, Queen and Journey and Whitesnake and Asia. And I think he gets a really good sound on here. Songs are varied, but yet they're always melodic. Yeah, it does lean a little bit. There's a lot of ballady type of songs on here, but we were getting to that point where, bands were trying to spin off as many singles off albums as they could. It's a nice long album without being too long. It's a 12-song album. And I just think it didn't have it out of the gate. It didn't have a chance, because like you said, it didn't even crack the top 100 in an era where this type of music was still strong. A year later, 2 years later, for sure. Yeah. Okay. That would have been the wrong album for the time, but I think this was really, like, absolutely fitting for the time. So I guess the best thing we can do is to go through it track by track. And the first track, one of my favorites, Hard Times. John, what is your impression of this one?
Hard Times brings this album out like a volcano here. I mean, it's an excellent opener. It's this great, menacing, melodic, mid-tempo track. First thing that really jumps out you is the recording. I think at this point, this was the best recorded album.
I think so. Yeah.
And as time goes on, I think it gets a little better recording wise. Which we'll talk about on our next week episode, certainly. But excellent track here. I listen to this, I'm like, how was this not played on AOR? I'm not expecting this to be a top 40 single.
No, you're right. It's a rock radio. It sounds like a rock radio hit.
Yes, but this is an excellent track. Great pre-chorus into the chorus. It's a song about perseverance that anyone can relate to. Hard times, hold on tight because it's going to get better. Got to keep moving on. We all go through this at one point or another in our life. The references to past songs in the pre-chorus. Dreams won't last forever.
Yeah.
Just like a wind of change.
Yeah.
So
and the opening line, my understanding, the opening line, goodbye, rock and roller, farewell, my friend. That's about Joey Alves. Joey Alves had left.
Oh,
by this point, was replaced by Steph Burns. I do want to mention, and this happened by 1990. And that's why I take such exception to the grunge thing, because bands were already starting to tone down their look.
They were. Bit.
Even Poison with Flesh and Blood. If you look at the photos of Poison, Flesh and Blood era compared to Open Up, or certainly look at the Cad Drag did, they toned down.
Yes.
That's a classy band photo,
Absolutely.
Just leather jackets, jeans, the band looks cool here. Steph had played with a bunch of people. He's actually a pretty prolific session musician. I would come to find out doing some research.
Yes.
It's a great song. It's got a fast midsection. It's got a great bass line that leads into that. It's you can hear an earlier version of this on Unearthed Volume 1, which was more of a ballad, and it was more about I guess it was more about a woman like picking herself up after a breakup or tragedy of some sort. But yeah, the lyrics became more general, more easily relatable for anybody. Great song. It's got a great coda at the end, and I think a few of the songs on here do. So it's got these fade outs that I don't mind. Sometimes I don't like fade outs, but these fade outs are ones I want to turn up louder and louder and louder. I just want to hear every last bit of it. Yeah, really good recording. I mean, you can definitely tell money was spent. This is a much better recording than Contagious. Up until now, I would say I would call Earthshaker and Down for the Count maybe their most professional sounding recordings on a hard rock level. I think Mean Street is their best metallic sort of production. But yeah, they haven't been known. They've been known for very inconsistent productions up to this point.
True.
So working with Mike Stone, who, I mean, at this point had, was not that far removed from the 1987 Whitesnake album. That was actually a co-production with, I'm not sure if it was co-produced or, he produced some of it, Keith Olsen produced some of it. It's kind of confusing, very confusing actually. But on here, it's a great sound, and not without some incident, not without some controversy, which we will get to. Second track, Lucy. It's just an all-out rocker. What do you think of this one?
It's a really cool tune. I mean, you got their musicianship really shows off on these straight ahead rock songs because they throw in these little things like da-dun, 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 da, which a lot of bands weren't doing at this point. This is the best band musically of Y&T, which Jimmy DeGrasso says in the On With the Show documentary.
It's a fantastic lineup, right?
Fantastic. But this is another good straight ahead rock song. You got nice call and response in the choruses, and the second verse they do it too, which is a nice touch.
Yes.
Something a little bit different.
Yep.
But I mean, it's a song they have played live from time to time. It goes over well, and it's just a good straight ahead track, but the musician really steps it up, and there are little nuances on it that really come out that differentiate them from other bands. So yeah, it's a very good second song on an album.
Lyrically, it's nothing new under the sun, but they throw these. I love the fact that they throw these parts in and these little turnarounds that the song doesn't call for, but it just elevates it. It just lets you know that this is a band they've been playing for a long time and they know what they're doing, and they write these parts in. You're right. I love that now everybody's talking that little break before the second chorus. You're not expecting it, and it's these unexpected things that keep it from just being a plain old rock song. But yeah, another good one. And then of course that takes us to Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. This was another outside song, although it's familiar to Whitesnake territory. The song was written by Taylor Rhodes and Robert White Johnson. They also wrote Bodily Harm on the Contagious album. Taylor Rhodes co-wrote several songs with Dave, including Contagious. So, it's not completely outside of the realm. I don't know if anyone else ever recorded this, but this is like a mid-tempo power ballad, just par excellence. I mean, it's got great guitar work. It's got a melody that it's got the chant, the sort of chanted melody at the beginning of it. Dave is perfectly at home with these types of songs. He excels at them. I love every bit of the guitar solo in the middle of the song. And he could just keep playing that guitar solo at the end, and they could have had that fade go on for 2 more minutes, and I would have been perfectly happy. I love the ride out on that song. The drums, how it'll stop, da 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 down, and every once in a while they'll hit the floor tom instead of the snare, and it's an epic. And for those who are curious, there are 3 versions of this song on the CD single. The first track is the rock edit fade, which is 409. Second version is the rock edit at 434. And the third version is the LP version at 451. Now the video I'm guessing is that middle version, the 434 one, because it cuts out the section right before the final chorus where it drops down. It's an amazing song. It really should have been a hit. And Taylor Rhodes and Robert White Johnson, you look up those songwriting teams. I mean, they co-wrote "Crying" by Aerosmith. They co-wrote I think there was a big ballad, one of Celine Dion's big ballads that they figured on. I'm not sure which one. Maybe it was Where Does My Heart Beat Now? I don't
Yeah, I
know. But
believe that was what it was.
yeah, the fact is that, you know, these were hit making songwriters, and man, they couldn't have, the band couldn't have delivered it much better. I mean, and again, just like the band looks cool on the back cover of this record, I think they look really cool in this video. They hadn't done great videos up until this point, but this one looks good. I mean, it was like so many other videos. You got a bit of a storyline with this couple and they're swimming, but then the band's just in like, you know, you could almost write a book on bands doing videos in abandoned warehouses, because
Yeah.
the guys are in an abandoned warehouse. There's some trash cans on fire, but they look cool. You know, they look cool. It alternates between Dave playing a white Strat, but then his old trusty Les Paul. Yeah, it's fantastic, you know, and it should have been a big hit. It hit number 27 on the mainstream rock chart, but it deserves so much better. And I remember at the time, I couldn't even find the cassette single, because cassette singles were really big and I was buying a lot of them. There is one. I've seen it on eBay, but
okay.
You just get the feeling that the stuff wasn't hitting. The album was easy to find. This album was easy to find, even up here in Canada.
Okay.
But why wasn't the single? Like, it's just like the extra bit of promotion wasn't being done. Just two more things. There's another CD single that you can go on Discogs and find, and it's just got one version of this, and it's got Summertime Girls as track 2. But the really curious thing is that it's got a copyright date of 1989. Which makes me wonder if this album wasn't supposed to come out earlier, because this was 3 years, almost 3 years since Contagious came out, and that was the longest there'd been in between Y&T albums since that gap between Struck Down and Earthshaker. So since they've been going, that was the longest break between albums. Did they lose any momentum in there? I don't know. Again, it's Geffen Records, and you'd think now, okay, what else would have been out on Geffen, just coming out on Geffen? That would have taken all that promotional, focus away. And I can't think of anything.
Slip of the Tongue came out in 89.
That was late 89, because this came out in May of 1990. And you can almost hear the record company Spiel saying, look, we're going to push it back, but it's going to get our full promotional, full court press. And obviously it didn't. The only ad I ever remember seeing for this is in Circus, and it was just one of those half-page ads.
Right. Yeah, they I agree with you there, and I think they were still pumping Appetite at this point, because even if it was
that album had legs, and Pump and Tesla was doing really well.
Pump was in 89. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, and Tesla, 88 you had 89 they put out the
Great Radio Controversy. Later on they'd have the acoustic album, but they were doing really well. It wasn't blockbuster, but they were going platinum. They were going
platinum with every album, and then they had a big hit with Signs, which was a cover song. It just seemed like, again, they weren't getting a push. And at this point, now 3 years between albums is no big deal. Back then, 3 years it was like an eternity. It was like, well, they must have broke up for a while and then came back. That would be your mind frame at this time. Because right at this point, 2 years was the norm.
2 years,
and just a few years earlier, it was 1. But at this point, be 2.
Yeah.
And here we're going from maybe summer 87 to spring of 90. You're going on 3 years.
Yeah.
So, and you didn't really get a big push on Contagious. And now you're coming back with 10. A lot of people probably already forgot.
Yeah.
89, maybe this would have did better. Maybe they would have pushed a second single. But again, I think you're with John Kalodner, the guy with the magic touch.
Yeah.
And again, we get the diehards buying it. We get one video, and then Sinks Without a Trace.
And unlike Contagious, this has a lot more potential singles on it. Like a lot more songs that radio should have grabbed right a hold of.
Especially rock radio, I think. There's a lot of, like, you see like 4 songs on here easy.
Yeah. Easy.
That you think rock radio tracks, maybe not big hits, but they would have gotten played enough on AOR that fans who were just
worked into a little video play. Mm-hmm. And another problem is that, I guess this is as good a place to talk about it as any John,
Yeah.
because this was their last major label album.
Yes.
And I never ever heard anybody talk about Tesla. No rock bands were talking about Tesla, listing them as influences. And all it
No.
would have taken would have been a band like Tesla, like Cinderella. Take the guys on tour.
Yeah.
Put them on tour. Hard rock is bigger than it's ever been. And then you get this band opening that's got all these years of experience behind them. And, you know, like Whitesnake opening for Motley Crue in 1987, it could have, they never had a big tour. They were just reliant on that, you know, that Southern California and the old tried and true. You can only do that so many times.
Right.
Go back to the well. It's, you know, you hear these guys now talking about them, but it's like, why weren't you mentioning them in the rock mags back then? Because that meant everything. If somebody in a band I liked mentioned a band, they were on my radar. You know, I got a Metal Edge special in 1987 on Bon Jovi.
Okay.
And in it, John talks about this band he's been working with called Skid Row. So Skid Row were on my radar for 2 years before I ever heard them. That meant something back then. I mean, I will give Tesla credit. At least Troy Lucketta's got a Yesterday and Today shirt on the inside of Great Radio Controversy. That's something. But I just, there's so many things that could have tipped the scales just a little bit. But I digress. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Next up, I think that's another song that gets played live still once in a while. Girl Crazy.
Okay, this isn't one of my favorite songs on the album. It's kind of a boogie shuffle that they later revisit on the next album. It's well played. It's just straight ahead shuffle. There's nothing really that grabs you from this song. I mean, it's one of my least favorite songs on the album. It's okay. It's got
those parts. It's got those tricky little parts that the song
Yeah. There's some little parts in there. Yeah, I will grant you that. But
yeah, so it's 8 years removed from, you know, the songs we always talk about and we always get crap for. They've gotten better at that sort of thing.
Right.
Next up is the song City. Now, this one is a good place to mention this because I didn't know this until I got the CD because the cassette was kind of vague with the credits. I think you know where I'm going with this. This is one of only 3 songs on this album that Jimmy DeGrasso plays on. The rest of the tracks were done by Steve Smith. Steve Smith, amazing, you know,
no question.
Obviously. And I always wondered about it. And luckily the documentary makes it very clear what happened. Jimmy was not a fan of Mike Stone. You know, he said, who gives these producers this power to say a band member can't play on the album? And there was lack of communication and he wasn't happy with the way Jimmy was playing, but he wasn't saying anything. And then next thing you know, this is not cutting it. Anyway, so they brought Steve Smith in and I thought this was very classy. Steve Smith wrote out Jimmy's parts and played Jimmy's parts. I thought that was really, really cool of him to do. But you listen to this and the 2 other songs and it's fine. You can tell it's a different drum sound. But yeah, the CD said, oh, that's interesting. At the time, I just thought, oh, that's cool. Steve Smith, Journey, that's cool. Now, this song is one of very few instances where I hear Y&T sounding like bands that came after them. Because when I hear this song, I hear a lot of Cinderella.
Yep.
I hear Falling Apart at the Seams I hear Bad Seamstress Blues going to Falling Apart at the Seams. There were so many of those little acoustic intros, like Rise to It by Kiss.
Yeah.
Everybody was doing that at the time. And it doesn't sound like a particular song, but it just sounds like they were listening, you know? Even right before the last chorus, Dave does what I would call a pretty good Tom Kiefer impression. It's a good song. It's a good song. It's a good driving song. It's one where I even listening to it new, I'm like, this sounds like Cinderella. But
a little bit. Yeah. I think of this song. I'm going way off here. War from San Francisco had a song called City Country City, where it was an instrumental. It was 13 minutes long, and it's from The World is a Ghetto album, which is probably their best album.
Right.
And it starts with a country flavored instrumental. It's slow and laid back, and then it gets into the city part where they go into this great instrumental jazz groove, and then it goes back into the country part, then it goes back into the city part, and it does it for 13 minutes, and it's a wonderful song. This, I always think, this is kind of like they only do the country part right at the beginning and right at the end, and they call the song City. But then when you get into that, that's the city parts. So to me, it's kind of like the heavy metal version of it, but there's vocals to it. It's a different song, obviously, but it's a cool tune. I think it has a great. I like that country blues beginning there, and a band like this can really pull it off. Whereas like Kiss with Rise to It, it was just that little bit of guitar where you got Dave singing along and sounding like
gravelly,
sounding like a blues guy, right?
Yeah.
And then for this song, it works. And now this is a cool tune, really good melodic riff. It's really catchy. Like I said, nice chorus on it. It's a little long because it takes a little while to get going because the country part, the country opening, the country blues opening is, a little long, but it's a cool tune. But yeah, it does has a little bit of that Cinderella Tesla vibe to it. But these guys who are fantastic musicians can pull it off like nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny because, obviously these guys have been around longer. They haven't really done too much of that.
Right.
So that's what made me think of that. And, being at that age, not having that big, I'd heard of War, but I'd certainly never, without the internet, you were limited to what you heard, your friends were listening to or whatever. I just heard Cinderella. I wasn't even a Kiss fan back then. So it was just like, just seemed like a lot of people were getting to that acoustic slide guitar intro, and then it gets heavy.
It's probably more, it is more akin to what you're saying, but I thought,
but I bet you in their minds,
right?
It wouldn't surprise me if in Dave and Phil's minds, they were thinking more of what you were talking about, the War song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which leads us to side one closer, another great power ballad, Coming from the Rain.
Which says radio rock track written all over it.
Yeah.
It's very classy ballad again, which is their power ballads are second to none.
Yeah.
They write the best in the genre. If you look at the whole catalog, I think it's Y&T and pretty much everybody else. It's just an excellent song. I like the drama in it. The You Gotta Let Go part of pre-chorus when they go into that soaring chorus there. It's an excellent track.
Yeah. And
when I listen to this musically, it sounds like a prelude to No Regrets from Musically.
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah,
like not lyrically, but musically absolutely.
A little bit of a
yeah. Again, what could have been for this song?
It's a bit long. It's 6:02. They'd had to edit it, but they that's fine. I used to have a real problem with. It's funny. I used to have a real problem with radio edits because I think we were conditioned to not like them.
Yeah.
Radio edits, censorship. I got to tell you though, from working in radio, sometimes radio edits are really good because let's say you're timing your hour out and you've got 3.5 minutes and you're like, well, I'd really like to play this song, but it's 5:10. I wish I had a 3.5 minute edit of it so I could play them. I could play it, say who it was, but I can't.
Right.
So, and the idea is hopefully you hear the song and you buy the album and you realize that, oh, that was an edit. Well, now I have the whole track. So, I think I don't think edits are the enemy the way that I used to. I think they served a purpose because the bands you like were getting on the radio. So, but this definitely could have been second or third single. I mean, it probably would have been better if they hadn't put two ballads out in a row. But side two opens with Red Hot and Ready. Not just Red Hot, but Ready too. What do you think of this one?
It's just a good rock song. I mean, they always had these really good straight ahead rock songs on here. You got a nice little bridge in it, which separates it from a lot of songs that are similar. It's very well played, play with a lot of conviction. You know, it's not the great shakes, but it works. It works great as a side two song one track because
Yes.
it takes you in again after you had the drama of the ballad that ended side one.
It's a
If
bit
you
of
had the
relief
cassette.
because that
Yeah.
was such a heavy, you know, whether you had to flip the cassette over or whether you're just listening to the CD. Yeah.
Right.
I like the little Zeppelin reference in the middle, you know, been a long time, been a long, long time. I like that's
That's
kind of
true.
cool.
Mhm.
And the other thing, once I realized it was Steve Smith playing on here, and I love it, but I remember thinking he's almost too good to play music like this. You know what I mean? Like he throws in these really ornate, decorative
Yeah.
fills, and you know he's Steve Smith's amazing, right? But when I hear songs like this, it's like this would never be something that Steve would write. You know what I mean? Like,
He wouldn't write it. No.
but and as far as why Steve Smith, you know, if they needed someone to come in and basically be a session drummer, it makes perfect sense. It's Mike Stone. He worked with Steve Smith many times, so it makes sense that they would have called him in. But, next up, now I call this a ballad. In the 10 chapter in this book,
Right.
and a lot of people chastise me. I wouldn't call this a ballad. I don't know, but She's Gone. What do you think of this one?
Well, I wouldn't call it a ballad either because it has the drama that you would have in a ballad. But I think with a ballad, I don't think has a riff like that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, like a ballad is going to be slower. It's going to be maybe more acoustic, more tender vocal. That riff is like a sinister killer riff. And then some of the things they're doing at the end of the chorus is some of those riffs, they don't say ballad to me. To me, it's just a great dramatic rock song. Strong chorus, another great call and response. She's gone, she's not my baby now. Oh
Yeah.
no, she's not my baby now. That is awesome. The guitar lines are fantastic on it. The riffs, again, killer. But I mean, to me, it wouldn't be a ballad. It's just maybe the lyrics may say ballad, but the music doesn't.
Point taken. There's two things about, well, there's a few things. This is another song Jimmy plays on, and it's great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just boggles the mind. It's like, obviously, he's a great drummer. Why didn't he get to play on his own album? The riff, and I didn't think of this at the time, but years later on the Y&T forum, somebody brought this up, and I couldn't get it out of my head. Can't deny there's a similarity. So does anyone ever notice the riff to She's Gone sounds an awful lot like Too Young to Fall in Love?
Yes. Yes.
And then the chorus, I hadn't heard the song at the time, even though it was a big hit. I don't ever remember hearing it on the radio until years later when I heard another song called She's Gone by Hall & Oates, one of their first big hits.
Okay.
It's got the lyric, I better learn how to face in the chorus. So it's like, it's not close enough to warrant anything.
Right.
It's just interesting. And I'm sure in both cases, it was subconscious. And again, with riffs, there's only so many ways you can write an F sharp riff or write a riff in general. It's bound to sound like something. I love it. This is one of my favorites on here. And yeah, the drums are not your standard 4/4 pattern. It's a 4/4. It's not anything other than a 4/4 time signature, but the way Jimmy plays it, it goes out in and out of that time signature. It's just great. It's fantastic. And got lots of cowbell.
Yes, it does.
This satisfies the cowbell.
Oh yeah.
Track 9, Let It Out, written by Jeff Paris. And who else wrote that song? It's co-written by Jeff Paris. I know that, who's a name familiar to Y&T. Moon Calhoun. What do you think of this one?
I like the beginning with the bass and those pinch harmonics in there.
Yeah.
You got a nice riff. You got a nice space between the notes. It's got a decent pre-chorus, but the chorus doesn't really go anywhere. I think that's what holds the song from going to another level. It's okay. I don't if you were to cut a song off of this album, this would probably be it. It's all right. I've never been a big fan of it. How
I'm
about
not
you?
sure about the synthesized flute at the beginning of it either.
Ye-
Not sure why they felt the need.
I
I
thought
bet
there
you
was a pinch harmonic, but okay.
it sounds like a flute to me, but
Okay.
it's different. And once you know that it was an outside song, yeah, it kind of sounds like an outside. Even though Jeff Kerr's, co-wrote with Phil on "In Rock We Trust," it does sound like that's one that the record company might have had earmarked for single number 2, but of course they didn't do it, which is another case of why would you get them to go through the trouble of recording it if you're not going to do anything with it. But anyway, yeah, I like it. It might be my least favorite on the album. I still think it's okay. Next up is one of my favorites on the album, 10 Lovers.
Phil Kennemore track here.
Oh yeah.
Oh, very Zeppelin-esque because it's got that build. And it's an acoustic track. It's very whimsical in the beginning. Dave singing in his natural register. It's got some great drama in there when they go into the choruses. By the time you get to the third chorus,
yeah, Dave singing at the top of
he's going, he's going into he's singing in his rock voice at that point. Yes. So it has that sense of drama to it. It's very good. The solos in this, excellent, and including the one near the end of the track. I should say the outro, but then they ended acoustic too.
Yeah.
This it just very Zeppelin-esque to me with the way they build into the acoustic, into the electric, into the big chorus. And I think this works very well. They have those, it sounds like strings before they go into the chorus. I don't know if they actually had a string. They hired
it's probably synth, but
it's probably synth, but they have it so it sounds like they're not going to hire a string section. But this kicks. I mean, this is an excellent track. But it's long and it takes you. It's almost 7 minutes, but it takes.
It's an epic. Yeah, it's very atmospheric. It is very Zeppelin-esque. Like when it goes into the the wind beats on my window pane. Those are very Zeppelin, like Jimmy Page like chords. And
yes,
if you just picture Jimmy sitting on the edge of the stage, and but it's not a ripoff. It just you just hear this sounds like. I'm not saying there's anything on here that's anything less than sincere in the way that it's done, but this sounds like one of the most, like Phil was really proud of this one and the way that they present it. I mean, it's an acoustic rocker. It's not it starts out like a ballad, but once it kicks in, there's nothing ballady about it. And you'd think it was melodic enough to be a single, but what would you cut from it? You wouldn't want to cut anything from this. So what could you do?
Maybe the second verse, like have go rock in the second instead of the third verse.
Yeah, they could have done something like that. Yeah, it's possible. It's just and if you think about that the right edit with the right video, I mean, there's potential hits on here all over this album. But this is this is one of my favorites on the album, always has been. And next we have the lone really fast song on the album, Going Off the Deep End. What do you think of this one?
Okay, very fast track, very straight ahead. To me, the highlight is listening to the band play.
Yeah,
some of the little things they're throwing in during the verses, during the choruses, the quick stop starts they're doing again. What other band could have pulled this off in the hard rock genre? I mean, to me, this screams about what a great ensemble you had here with Phil and Jimmy and Steph.
And the nice thing, this is Jimmy. Again, this is Jimmy on this song.
Yep. I mean, if you don't think Jimmy can't play, listen to this. I mean,
he does those really quick with the, I bet she'd fit me like a glove with the high. Bam, 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 bam,
yeah, exactly.
And the right before the solo.
Yeah. Right. That's who.
It's by this time it's like we know these guys can do songs like this, and it almost sounds out of place on this album because everything tends to be like kind of like mid-tempo, but
right,
I think it's well placed. It's like, hey, lest anyone forget, we're the same band that did Knock You Out and Black Tiger and
and Squeeze,
and Squeeze. Yeah, we can still do the fast ones.
Exactly. Yeah, but again, like we were just talking about with Jimmy, Mike Stoney let him play 3 songs. I mean, listen to his performance on here, and then think about all the other bands he's played with ever since then. I mean,
yeah,
I think I said this in the book. Paul Stanley said that about Eric Singer, because Eric Singer was one of these guys who bounced from band to band. And Paul Stanley said that's because Eric Singer is good. Same thing with Jimmy DeGrasso. I mean,
don't keep getting work if you're not good.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of these drummers in these bands. I mean, once that band breaks up, you don't hear of them again. But these guys are still out there getting gigs and kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah. Not everybody that's in a band, once that band breaks up or there's a member change, you don't always hear of them joining another band.
Right.
As a matter of fact, a lot of times you don't.
But, right. Yeah. Yeah, like I think of a lot of the drummers, they might wind up going into something else, or maybe they'll come back with that original band once after the breakup, and they go back out and they start touring again, but they're not putting albums out. But somebody like a Jimmy DeGrasso, I mean, Mama's Boys, Y&T, Alice. Was he in
that? Yep.
He wasn't Alice Cooper. Suicidal. Okay, Megadeth. Suicidal Tendencies, Megadeth.
Yeah, Black Star Riders.
Yeah, so it's like he bounced all over the place. I mean, tell me this guy isn't a kick-ass musician. He obviously is. And then with Steph.
Oh my goodness. So yes, when I had at the end of the book,
I was just gonna say,
when I did the guest appearances, I just kept finding appearance after appearance after appearance for Steph Burns and all over the place. Everybody from Sheena Easton, Patty Austin, Jeff Beck tribute, and you don't get to that point unless you're a well-rounded, versatile musician. I mean, I'm looking through this. I'm like, this guy's almost like a Lukather. I mean,
I was just gonna say, he's like Steve, the Steve Lukather of hard rock and metal.
Yeah. And you don't do that unless you're or Dan Huff or somebody like that. You don't get to that point unless you're really, really good. I mean, even like Leonard Hayes, he played with Ian Gillan, I think, for a very brief time, but you didn't hear much. Peter Criss never joined another band after he left Kiss. I'm not picking on him. I'm just saying some of these. You're right. When these guys, you keep seeing these names, it's because people that hire them know what they're getting. They know they don't have to mess around. They're good.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so the last track on 10 is one of my favorites, Surrender.
Mine as well. Very passionate track. Yeah. Very memorable song. Nice pre-chorus into the chorus on this. This song, just another one. It's one that I screamed for and heard at a Y&T show.
Yeah.
In 2015. Emotional solos on here. The solo in the outro is spectacular. I mean, this is just a great song. More call and response.
Yeah.
Surrender. All my love. Surrender. So between
and Phil on the bass. Do.
Oh, nice.
Great playing from everybody. This is the song. This is the most up-tempo song on the album that I would have said that could be a single.
Yes.
It's catchy enough to be a single.
It is. It's very accessible.
Yeah.
And very melodic. It's something that if you're a hard rocker, you can get into this, and you're not really into that vein, you could still appreciate a song like this. Excellent track. It's interesting though. It ends the album, and it's not a power ballad, but it has the emotion of passion of one.
It's almost like Forever or a song like that, where it's lyrically it could be a ballad, but musically it's not. So to me, it's just when I first heard this album, when I got to the end of it, this does not sound like a band that's on their last legs. This doesn't sound like a band on their 10th album. This sounds like a revitalized band. Should also mention that, with Joey Alves gone, Steph Burns is on 4 of the 12 tracks playing lead. Now, I don't know off the top of my head which ones they are, but I think I can pick them out because Dave's pretty easy to pick out.
Yeah.
an absolutely amazing album. I know that there are purists that don't like this period of the band, but I'm not one of them. I like it all pretty much. This is head and shoulders my favorite album. It's the one I've listened to the most, and it's one of those albums that I've listened to so many times I could play it in my head from start to finish. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. So there you go, guys. That's the second and final of the Y&T Geffen period with their 10 album in 1990. We thought that this was the end. Fortunately, it wasn't. And we're going to talk about what came next on the next edition of the Y&T Deep Dive. John, as always, thank you for helping me along with this.
Thank you, Tim.
And thanks for everybody who continues to purchase Down for the Count, the Y&T album review, because it still sells steadily. Really appreciate it. And to hear people saying, hey, I'm going back, I'm finding the older albums, that's it. That's why we're doing it. So there you go, folks. More Y&T Deep Dive to come. Thanks for watching this edition of Tim's Vinyl Confessions. See you later.